Hello and welcome to Hoaxs Folks, where it's just a hoax, folks, so don't get too tied up in it. Moving on, today we're going to be talking about a great legend, and one I find quite interesting, called Mothman, or well, the legend of Mothman. It's not really a legend in and of itself, but Mothman is a legend, and it is a very spiraling theory, if you might add, or well, might I say, as there's a lot of sightings and a lot of physical descriptions and a lot of stuff that goes into it. So this is just going to be a brief covering, and we can do a series on it later whenever we get past the next viewings, or 4 or 5 episodes. We can circle back to it later, as we do need to cover our next few episodes. But it brings us into an interesting thing to get started with. And as this is the first episode that we will be airing, I do hope you very much enjoy, and let's begin. So Mothman. Who is Mothman? What is Mothman? No one really knows, but they say that Mothman is a large creature that was thought to inhabit the TNT area. As we will soon find out, that may not be a great theory. But to get off that, we need to do with the first account and the newspaper, the Athens Messenger. This was in Atlantis, Ohio on a Friday, November 15th, although the newspaper was released on November 18th, 1966. They say that the couples, 2 couples in fact, actually, which honestly got me confused when I was reading about this, was that there was 2 couples on November 15th driving through the TNT area when they spotted the creature again. And this is interesting to me because it says again, like this is the first time. And honestly, I don't get why you would be having a nighttime drive if this was the second time you're seeing the creature. But you know, you do you, boo. Anyway, so terrified, they sped off at 100 miles an hour. But the strange being, had no trouble keeping up with them. They sped off, went to the deputy sheriff. The next day they went into court, and not only that, they told everyone believed them because nearly over 100 people came forward with their eyewitness accounts that day, and during this time, the town of Point Pleasant also experienced paranormal and possibly extraterrestrial activity. And so this isn't just the first account, there is more. And honestly, the leading theory that I think is the most plausible, and we will be getting back to this, is coming up, of course. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I think that this proves that this theory is the most viable, in my personal opinion. So, what was this Mothman like? What did he look like? You might be wondering now. And that's a good question, because honestly, I don't know what he looks like. But this is what I've read about, is the physical description. And that is that he was between 5 and 7 feet tall. Yeah, okay, making sure. And with a 10-foot wingspan. I'm like, wait, 7 or 10? Because I did a little bit of gibberish here, but he had a 10-foot wingspan. Mothman's head is described as large and abnormal, of course, with 2 giant blaring red eyes. He's a man-like creature with wings, but no arms, just wings instead. And he looks more like an owl in the descriptions that we see, and you can look it up for yourself what Mothman looks like. The illustrations I'm looking at are by A. Norham. His signature is weird, so it's kind of hard to read. And it says that, and I'm not just going to skip this part of my notes, because it says Mothman is also capable of incredible flying capabilities, and it says what he can do, but this is of course, hoax, or, well, is it a hoax? That's for you to decide, of course. But we're not going to talk about what it can or cannot do, because we do not know. But they say that the Mothman is a creature of danger and chaos who seeks to put humans in dangerous situations, right? And I do believe that. Now, some people say it can be an alien creature because of something that happened, or they say that it can be a mutated monster, which I think is partly likely. But I think the most likely theory, and this is what it says, getting back to, is the Native American, or the ventral curse, where on November 7th, 1777, Chief Cornstalk basically was like, hey guys, let's have peace. They're like, no, they went and killed them all. And as he was dying, he said, I was the border man's friend. Many times I have saved him and his people from harm. I never wore I never warred with you, but only to protect the Wilgams of the lands. I refuse to join your placeful enemies with the redcoats. I came to the fort as your friend, and you murdered me. You murdered me by the side of my young son. For this may you curse. May the curse of the Great Spirit rest upon this land. May it be blighted by nature. May it be brightened by its hopes. And may the strength of the peoples be paralyzed in the stain of our blood. So basically, they killed him, and they cursed the land, obviously. And I think the worst part is you have murdered me by my side, my young son. They killed him, they killed his son, and he cursed the land. And I think this is the most likely theory. As we go back, and as I said, we're going to circle back to this, it says that Point Pleasant also experienced paranormal and possibly extraterrestrial activity that is thought somehow to be linked to Mothman. And I think that this is a common going throughout, like many hoaxes, conspiracy theories, whatever you want to call them, like Skinwalker Ranch. They say the Indians cursed the land after a fort. They went up to them, tried to make peace, and guess what? They murdered them. And, it's not exactly what happened, but basically, murdering Indians and taking their land and then cursing it is a common thing that causes stuff like this to happen, apparently. There's also the mutated where they say that the military made them, and the UFO where this guy saw a UFO that happened, but I think that can go back to paranormal activity, and I think that that is a very, 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 very viable theory. Now, as we go into it more, you see that there's more than one sighting across this land. The collapse of the Silver Bridge, the collapse of Feuerberg Man, Chernobyl, 9/11 in the Twin Towers, the collapse of I-35 bridge, sorry. The Swan flu outbreak, Fukushima, and that was where the power plant basically was like, bye-bye, boom, boom. I think so. Let me double check that source real quick. And as I'm getting that checked, let me tell you about another thing. Fukushima, right? Yeah, Fukushima. Power plant blow up. Sorry, I got distracted there. I should want to make sure that this information is right. Yeah, Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster. It went boom. Anyway, and this was the most severe nuclear incident since Chernobyl. And this also came before these events of death. And so some theorize that, this is, that he is a cryptic creature and that he is just here. He shows up around times of death. He's there to be a curse. This is like the spirit. And then this could go into the fact that what if Mothman is a species? There is a lot of questions and a lot to cover, but I can tell you about the sightings and give you a brief description of what happened. I'm going to start with the collapse of XT Dam. It was a dam that collapsed in 1926. The strange creature was saw, and it was called Mandragon. On January 1926, the XT Dam collapsed and killed a lot of people and released 40 billion gallons of water. 15,000 people died November 12th to November 16th, 1966, which is an incident that is here. This one is highly specific, but basically it said that Mothman killed somebody's dog and almost killed a man, but he escaped. The collapse of Silver Bridge was basically the collapse of Silver Bridge, and it collapsed during rush hour. It was horrific. A lot of people died. 46 people left their lives, and many witnesses had claimed to see Mothman. The collapse of Feuerberg Mine, the collapse of mine on September 10th, 1978. The miners were saw, they died, and people saw it. It says many people in each of these. Chernobyl 19, many scientists, workers, and citizens. So this isn't just the workers. This isn't just the scientists. This is citizens. These are 3 different groups of people. They say they saw a large bird-like creature with the body of a man with glowing red eyes on April 26, 1966, was spotted before the huge explosion that came out of Chernobyl. So, it seemed during death. We know how it happened at 9/11. Basically, a bunch of people, several people near the Twin Towers, saw that they saw like a giant creature flying parallel to the same plane that hit the tower. The collapse of the I-35 bridge, 2007 in June, and then basically I-95 collapsed, killed 13 people, injuring 145, and again, many people. And this is just a trend. I'm not going to go through the rest of them because If I went through all the accounts, we'd be here for a while, but I think you understand the point. And now we get to the end where we read off mythology.net's explanation for this myth. As the sightings cryptic continue to present day, many people wonder if Mothman is more than a myth that haunts the town of Point Pleasant. There seems to be no consequences whether the creature means harm towards human, though it can be agreed the sightings of Mothman seem to precede tragedies and loss of life. As I have said now, I just read that last line right there. I'm not gonna lie, because I have it pulled up right here in my notes, pulled up right here together, and that's what other people came to conclude apparently. So I just think that furthermore proves my point that it is probably a paranormal experience, unexplained, that happens during death. And I think I can point out more if I wanted to, could find more, and I think that we would, or you, the viewer, would definitely find that interesting. But what I think is the most, horrific, one might say, coincidence is that it's always during times of death and more than one people see it. It's a trend of more than one person. It's not Jerry the Nut at the end of town with a shotgun looking for them aliens. It's hundreds, thousands of people who see it before these tragic events happen, and they all can say that they saw the same thing. And that's what I find interesting. So is it a hoax? Is it a mystery? Well, obviously it is, but we'll find out if it's a hoax later, I guess. That's for you to decide, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and you have a magnificent evening, day or night, whenever you're watching this.